Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com, a proud affiliate of the Hockey News. I'm your host, Nick Brlansky, joined as always by Nick Horwat. I'm in a undisclosed location at the moment for this episode, but we'll be back in the home studio tomorrow for Ice-Burgh to go. But Horwat, we have 1 week until the start of the NHL season. This preseason, the hockey games have been fun. They've been entertaining. Yesterday, the Nova Scotia Showdown was a nice change of pace, but 1 week from today, we get down to brass tacks and get to the actual action, games that have 2 points on the line. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, this preseason has felt kind of fast, but it helps that there's been there was a fun weekend for the team. Got to spend it in a non-traditional location. A lot of good moments for the team, a lot of good moments for Sidney Crosby. Even if it was a preseason game, you felt like there was a little more emphasis on this one specifically. You wanted to come out on top for the sake of Crosby, his friends, his family, and the country, but the province of Nova Scotia and the city of Halifax and the area of Cole Harbour. You wanted it all to go well for Crosby and the Penguins, and regardless of the game, it did. It was a ton of good stuff to see the team do all weekend long. A lot of great team bonding stuff. And, you usually don't take, takeaways. You usually don't have too many takeaways from preseason games other than maybe this player did this thing or that's really about it. Just what this player did specifically, because the team usually isn't trying as a whole. But boy, oh boy, we can get to the power play at some point. That needs to be worked on quickly.
It does need to get worked on quickly, but we'll discuss it.
Yeah, and
certainly.
But aside from it'll be discussed plenty. But aside from the power play, it was a good week, and aside from also getting shut out, maybe that hurts too. But.
Yeah, a lot of people I saw comparing it to when Andrew WK was in attendance at the Penguins game, because his song "Party Hard" is the Penguins' goal song, and they got shut out. I liken it more towards, because of the Crosby angle, when they played on his birthday, the first and only time they will ever play on Sidney Crosby's birthday, and they got shut out and eliminated by the 24 seed Montreal Canadiens. A very Penguins thing to do. Obviously, joking, because they're a historically great franchise in the NHL, but a very Penguins thing to do to not show up in a game that, while it doesn't mean the world, it does mean a lot to an important player on their team.
Yes, and also don't forget about the time losing in overtime with Shawn Michaels in the crowd.
Oh yeah, that one was rough. You just
that one's
wanted to
probably
see them.
Yeah.
That
one was probably the roughest because it was a playoff game, and it was during that run. Shawn Michaels had all kind of press and promo during it. But at least he got to see an overtime game. He got to see them score, whereas Nova Scotia and Andrew WK did not. And also, for what it's worth, I really hope they change the goal song this year. I'm sorry. I'm over it. It's time to move on. We need a new, fresh life in this team.
I know one that could be available soon.
Oh, if you say Hall & Oates.
Hey, listen, I like it. I know a lot of people don't like the Toronto Maple Leafs goal song of "You Make My Dreams Come True," but you know what? I do. So I wouldn't hate it. I don't think it fits the Penguins, actually, but
it didn't fit the Leafs.
It fit the Leafs. It fit the Leafs. It trust me, those young Austin Matthews, Willie Nylander, Mitch Marner Leafs, it fit the Leafs. Like, unserious, that fit the Leafs early seasons for those guys. But let's get into the bulk of the episode, because the season, with being 1 week away, we're beginning prediction week at the tip of the Ice-Burgh, and that starts today. Now, Thursday's episode is going to be wall-to-wall predictions. Penguins individual players, Penguins team, league predictions. We'll give our Stanley Cup picks for the preseason on Thursday, but today we have a couple predictions to make, and we want to start with our bold predictions for the 2023-24 season. And I'll go with my, I said each of us will have one, but I feel like I've said the one that I have pretty much all summer. And that's Brian Rust will score 30 goals this year. I think this is the year that he finally does it. I think last year's poor performance with air quotes around it was an aberration for him. And he's played at a 30-goal pace the 3 seasons prior to last year. 2 of them were shortened due to COVID. So I see him getting over that 30-goal mark. That's my first bold prediction of the season.
I am with that one too. I like it. It's something that we kind of need to see from Brian Rust, right? It's something that he obviously wants to rebound and have a more consistent season and remain among genuinely one of the top names in terms of goal scoring on this team, like he has been for the last couple seasons, obviously aside from last year. Ever since Brian Rust really found his footing in the NHL, he's been one of the more consistent faces for the Penguins, and something about last season it didn't click. And as I say consistency, I remember actually Brian Rust has been one of the least consistent Penguins in a while. Do you remember when he went like months without scoring?
Last year?
Oh no, like we were still.
Oh wait, no, never mind. Yeah, I
And I
remember
think-
that. And then he scored a hat trick against Chicago.
Yep, and he scored a hat trick against Chicago to break his scoreless streak. I think me and you were at a bar watching that game. At least I was. I don't remember if you were with me yet.
I was gonna join you at the bar later in that evening. I was in a 6 to 9 class at Point Park University. Those horrible classes that I should never have taken.
Hey, you know what? I liked them. They at least as I got to my senior year, I said I'm going to take those over waking up every morning. That being said, we're not here to discuss school.
College schedules 5 years ago.
Yeah, man, we're 5 years out of college. Anyway, I remember that he has his bouts of inconsistency, but overall, he's normally one of the best goal scorers on this team. I just needs to find that again. We know he can. It was his consistency that earned him that big long contract from Ron Hextall. So if he's able to reclaim some of that, that'll go a long way in helping this team. And as for a bold prediction from me, I have two that I can kind of combine into one, just to make it easy. And one of them is going to be really hot considering what it's looked like so far. But I think the Penguins can easily become a top 3 team in this league or in this division.
Okay.
Not
I was like,
the league.
Whoa, hot take alert. Horwat says top 3. Okay, top 3 team in the division. That's a little less steamy, but still a bold prediction considering I've seen them, predicted as low as 6th in some people.
Yeah, a lot of people will give them 6. I've seen a lot of 4 and 5s, just in or just out of the playoffs again. But I think they can really solidify their spot as a top 3 team in the Metro. And it's going to be on the backs of and here it is, drum roll, a top 5 power play. If it can get going, there really is something that can go here. This is truly just because it sounds like a video game. You have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Erik Karlsson, and when he's healthy, Jake Gensel on the same top power play unit. We know it looks like hot dog water right now, but it can get going. I mean, over 6 in a preseason game. Every time, it doesn't matter who's on it, you can't go over 6.
No.
Discussed that a couple times this last season. Doesn't matter who is out there. You gotta find at least 1 in 6 opportunities. But I think they're gonna be able to pick something up. And you know what? For what it's worth, the second unit looks like they at least are put together, and they'll get their opportunities. They'll get their chances. That should really also help the percentage. So my big bold prediction here is, aside from being a top 3 team in the Metro, that power play is gonna be going. It can easily be top 5.
It's interesting because, I told you that I had 1 and it was Brian Rust to score 30. And I've been bullish on that all summer long. People that have listened to the show know that. So I came up with another one. My second bold prediction is the Penguins finish top 3 on the power play, that they get it together. So we're on the same wavelength there, thinking that what we've seen so far in training camp is not what's going to be, the actual power play throughout the entirety of the season. I mean, there's a lot of talent out here. And with that much talent, you have to imagine at some point they figure it out. And even last season, when they had that much talent and everybody said the power play was awful, it was mediocre. It was, I think, 14th in the National Hockey League last year, a little over 21%. I mean, that's, from pure numbers standpoint, that is not putrid. But again, with that much talent, you can't finish mediocre. You can't finish middle of the pack. And adding a guy like Erik Karlsson, you just can't expect these guys to finish outside of the top 10. Honestly, you have to imagine that these guys with the talent that they have are going to figure it out, at least on the power play where they have the man advantage. So I said top 3 simply because, one, I think that's a hot take. That's a bold prediction. And also because I needed to leave at least some room for the Edmonton Oilers and one other surprise team, because there's always a surprise team that comes out and succeeds on the power play. A couple of years ago, it was the Islanders were automatic on the power play, a team that didn't have offense anywhere else, but they always scored on the power play. So, and then the Oilers, of course, broke the NHL record last season at 32.4%. So I'm going to leave wiggle room for those guys. But I do, mine's top 3. You say top 5. We're on the same wavelength here. We think that what we've seen from the power play, which has been awful, but we think that after, more than a week of actually practicing it, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if going into the practice today, it's a quick couple of drills and then maybe 45 whole minutes on just power play work, especially for the top unit, just to get things put together. We can see them all talking to each other, trying to discuss a plan, and B, just where these guys like to go. They're all they could all be on their own team top power play performers. It's kind of the situation that they're stuck in, is that they're all top guys that now need to work as a cohesive unit. And if things end up don't working out, I mean, it's not like Mike Sullivan's just going to say, okay, I'm not using enter name. I'm just not going to use him on the power play. No, he's going to plop him onto the second, and suddenly that unit's going to get a lot better too.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at it in terms of all 10 players that are going to be out there looking to score on the power play, the top 5, no matter what the combination is, it's going to be about the same 10 players on either side. It's just a matter of finding that rhythm, finding that momentum, and through those 10 players, through a whole 2-minute time span, they should be able to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
If Erik Karlsson stays on the first, maybe he's the one that gets moved to the second if it needs to happen. Well, then you've got that kind of firepower on your second unit. Same for Chris Letang if he gets bumped down. There's that. Also, if injuries occur, Ty Smith made his way through waivers. We still have him on the defense if we really need to. And in terms of offense, we don't know what that lineup's going to look like yet. But some of those call-ups could easily also sit on a power play. I know Mike Sullivan will probably like to use them on the PK a little more, but it should easily any of those guys that get called up could easily also perform on the power play. So there's going to be plenty of options.
Yeah, you mentioned young guys. I mean, Valtteri Puustinen is the first name that came to mind. Like, he gets called up. He is a guy that is automatically a candidate to play on the second power play unit. The guy has so much talent, so much ability. And, obviously the Penguins are hoping he rounds out his full game to become an NHLer. But, on the power play, that's when he gets to play to his strength. So that's easily a candidate there. And when it comes to the actual top power play unit, there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen. But the problem that I'm seeing with it also is as they're trying to figure it out, they're kind of playing tentative, and they're playing without any structure. Like, there's a lot of hesitation when it comes to certain passing, and there's also no structure whatsoever. And I understand, like, sometimes you got a guy like Erik Karlsson, let the man cook, let him do what he needs to do. You don't have to really barrow him into a structure, but at some point you kind of need to get something going there when it comes to structure wise, because if not, I mean, you're just going to confuse yourself too much, and you're going to beat yourself in opposing penalty kills. It's going to make it easy for them because you're going to overpass, overplay, and it's just going to pop right out to them, and they can clear it down. So a little bit more structure is something I'd like to see on the Penguins power play. But again, their first practice utilizing the power play was Wednesday of last week. Not even a full week that they've been at it with the power play. Yeah, I'm sure discussions have been had, but yeah, 0 for 6 is bad. But again, it's early. This is what preseason's for. They went 0 for 6 in the Nova Scotia Showdown. But at the end of the day, that doesn't count towards anything. It counts towards what it looks like. But they go 2 for 3 on Tuesday on Wednesday, or they go 3 for 4 on Friday. Nobody's going to care that they went 0 for 6 on Monday evening. And also, if they do that, who cares? Because it's not the regular season. So, you just need to figure it out, and you need to see them progress as the season gets closer and as the season begins.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. If it clicks in the next couple of days, we forget all about it. And that's kind of the point of this, right? That's why we are here practicing it, working on it over and over again. Sidney Crosby said that, with the reps should come the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Sullivan said it's a work in progress. Erik Karlsson said it's a work in progress. They all know it's just going to take some patience. It's going to take some getting used to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be patient. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, Mike Sullivan's going to have a quick leash on this and a quick mind to adjust, because the wins early in the season are going to be important for the team, and your power play is going to be an important part of it. Early in the season is when penalties get called the most, or at least when they're calling them a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to have something clicking early to get those early wins. And I mean, who knows what kind of heat could come out of a game against Washington, their home opener. You're going to have your opportunities. A lot of Western Conference games to start the year, by the way, as I look at the October
Yeah,
schedule.
a lot of Western Conference teams, but also a lot of home games. 6 of the 8 games to start the
Yeah.
season are at PPG Paints Arena, and the 2 road games, I believe one's in Detroit and one's in Washington. So they're not traveling a whole lot in the first month of the season. That is a good time to be able to get things underneath you, get your feet underneath you, and especially if you're the power play, get a lot of work in because you're not spending a lot of time traveling. So you hope that it obviously kicks into high gear once the season begins next Tuesday, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's a work in progress, it seems, as everybody toes the company line over there in the Penguins locker room. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the Penguins entering the final week of training camp. A couple of additions made, or at least one addition made, and a couple surprising names still sticking around on the Penguins training camp roster as we get closer and closer to those final roster cuts. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff on InsideThePenguins.com this upcoming season. Obviously, check out Jacob Puntori, always gets you ready to go with things to watch before every single game. And of course, some of his other pieces. Horwat is there with your beat reporter action. Every single piece of news, he's on it. I add some opinion pieces and some podcast articles, so not very much, but I try to write there as much as I can. I'll be obviously adding in some post-game coverage, as we've talked about on the show before. Check us out on anywhere you get your podcasts, on YouTube after the game or the morning after the game for Ice-Burgh recaps, which is new this season in season 5 of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Then we got a new writer. Haven't seen much from him yet. Excited to see what he brings to the table. Reese Comfort joins the staff. So obviously a lot of exciting things happening in year technically 3, but really 2 of InsideThePenguins.com. Horwat.
It's let's just say it's year 2, and
It's year 2.
Year 2 in a preseason that happened to be a postseason.
Yeah.
It's year 2. It's gonna be, again, much more, a lot more stuff. We have a meeting literally almost as soon as we're done here to discuss some of the plans for the season with everyone. I'm excited about the year. I'm excited to see where everything on this website can go. We can thank the Hockey News for also giving us a huge boost in terms of getting things put together and giving us a very big team of other writers to work with in terms of the league. So also, if you are fans of other teams, go check out the Hockey News and their team sites. Everyone's doing great stuff over there. But I'm excited to see where our site specifically can go because I'm competitive and a little selfish. I like seeing what our website has done against everyone else, and it's been awesome. So here's to another great season. We got a week until Connor Bedard is here, probably tearing us to pieces.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, Connor Bedard has looked just as advertised in preseason, but again, there's a reason it's preseason. We'll see what happens when the puck drops on October 10th. But before that, the Penguins do have to get through the final week of training camp. There are some decisions to be made over the next couple of days. Hopefully, not made in the next few hours, because I would like to edit this and get it out before before cuts happen and before anything we say gets ruled to be not really mattering anymore. But the Penguins currently sit with 38 players on their training camp roster. Need to get down to 22 expected by next Monday, which is when finalized rosters are due for the NHL. But Kyle Dubas said, you know what? I got a week till I have to get 15 guys off this team right now in a week. Let's add one. Let's a lot of all gas, no breaks on the roster already. Ryan Shea is higher on the depth chart than a Ty Smith, and that surprises me. At least it would surprise me if you would have told me that on September 21st, but seeing, what the Penguins have looked like in camp and what some of the, discussions have been with Mike Sullivan and his media availabilities, yeah, it makes a little sense that they want a little bit more defense lower in their defense core, but it certainly is a surprise at this point in camp that Ryan Shea is seemingly above Ty Smith on the team's organizational depth chart.
Yeah, and if you ask the same people that Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast asked, the Ty Smith thing is because he doesn't have the same compete level that a lot of other guys on the team or guys in the league have, and that does hurt. So if it's just based on compete level, well, Ryan Shea's got him beat there, I guess. It's that'll push him up the ladder. That'll give him a few extra rungs up. He also, let's just be real here, everyone may have lucked out that Mark Pysyk got injured. Let's also throw that one out there. Like everyone on this team may have gotten pretty lucky that that unfortunate injury happened to Mark Pysyk, because he seemed, at least in the first couple days, pretty set up to take that spot. Yeah. Now with him down, and we don't know for how long, we still don't really know anything about it. Hell, Will Butcher is also still skating with the injured players. We thought maybe he could fight for a minute. Those injuries may have really helped certain guys like Ryan Shea immediately push himself into a roster spot. So not that he has Mark Pysyk to thank, because that's just unfortunate, but he has him to thank for, hey, maybe making his NHL debut, by the way. Ryan Shea is yet to play an NHL game. He's 26, and according to certain people, has looked really damn good in the minor leagues and deserves his push to the NHL roster.
Yeah, Colby Armstrong and the Chicklets boys were definitely touting Ryan Shea's abilities over there. I think it was earlier this week or it was late last week. Either way, Ryan Shea getting some play in some national media, if that's what you want to call the Chicklets. I guess at this point they're national media. But I guess Biz being on TNT helps that too. But no, it's going to be interesting here in the last week, and I say that a lot. I need to stop saying that it's going to be interesting, because I just find the business of hockey and the business of who stays on the roster as something that's very intriguing, and the decision making and the mind behind it, which is now Kyle Dubas. Before it was Ron Hextall, and you really, trying to dive into that mind is like trying to walk through a minefield in battle. But Kyle Dubas, it's interesting. It's a chess match, and I'm not exactly sure what his next move is going to be. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to see. What do we want to see, actually, from the final couple of preseason games? That's what we're going to talk about. And then some more predictions. Who makes the roster? Is Ryan Shea going to make the roster? That's what we're going to try to predict after this break. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com. 1 week until the start of the NHL regular season, but some business to attend to for the Penguins between now and then. They have 2 more preseason games, one on Wednesday, one on Friday, before they wrap up their 7-game schedule in the preseason. It has been a slog. Yes, it was nice to have a little bit of a change of pace with the Halifax-Nova Scotia showdown for Sidney Crosby. Then, of course, the Penguins no-show, and you immediately say, okay, what's next? When is the start of the season? And that is 1 week from today. But like I said, some stuff left to happen, some preseason games left to be played. What do you want to see in these final 2 preseason games, Horwat? One of the things I need to see better cohesion just throughout the forward lineup. I mean, yes, Crosby, Raquel, Rust, you can tell the chemistry is back again. But the remainder of the lineup, I want to see a little bit more from Riley Smith and Evgeny Malkin. That's the top one that comes to mind. I want to see the fourth line. Like, I've liked what I've seen from Nola Chari, but I want to see that line work a little bit better as an entire unit. That's one of the things I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's hard to pin down cohesion whenever every game there's at least still small roster changes here and there to see what players can offer. But what I'm really looking for is, you're right, when it comes to the forwards, someone or a couple people in the bottom 6 to truthfully stand out once and for all. We've seen, Radim Zahorna have his time in the sun. Not saying that his, opportunity at the lineup is gone, but it seems to be dipping a little bit. He's just a matter of catching that wind one last time and proving himself. Alex Nylander, Again, another one that he had his time in the sun and is sort of dipped. Is also dipped. We want someone that can fight their way and prove their worth in the NHL, at least among the forwards. And I want to see these guys that haven't been sent back down yet get one more crack. I really do. Like Valtteri Pustin hasn't been sent back down yet. I want to see him be given a chance. Sam Poulin, I want to see him get back in the lineup for one more opportunity, see what he can do. The game tomorrow is a perfect time to rest your stars, or at least as many as you can with the amount of AHL options you have left. Maybe give Harkins a shot in the lineup, see what he has to offer. Give these other AHL players that are regardless likely starting in the AHL, give them their one last cut to see what they can do. And don't just continue to sit them around and do nothing, because you're not really learning much just from, skates in Cranberry or being scratched for preseason games. You got to give them their chance. So let the young kids go one more time. And in terms of defense, the top four is set. We know this. And that bottom pairing is probably going to go P.O. Joseph and somebody. Could be anybody.
Yeah. We obviously talked one last shot, because while yes, I don't know if either of them are really going to have a chance to make the lineup out of camp, you're hoping that maybe halfway through the season, one or both of them can come up and contribute and be a nice mid-season call-up. You remember those, or what? I mean, I do. It happened in 2016. It happened in 2017. And those seasons, I know my memory is not what it used to be, but those seasons seem to end pretty well. And, that's a common thread right there. And maybe, just maybe, one of these two guys can be that player this year. Give them another shot to prove it in preseason. Give them another shot to get some experience, get some chemistry with these guys that they're probably not going to play with for the next couple of months, because they'll probably get sent down to the AHL, and you're hoping, knock on wood, that guys are healthy, so you're not going to need to call people up for that. So obviously, Poulin and Puustinen have had great camps. Poulin has had really stellar camp, and he's been a thorough through when the Prospects Challenge came around. He was great there. He was great at the start of camp on the first weekend when you had a lot of those inter-squad scrimmages. He's been great in preseason action. Give him one more shot to show what he's worth, and I agree with you. Tomorrow is the perfect opportunity. It's almost like you're going to have the dress rehearsal again on Friday. Let your stars now sit back and say, you know what? We need some time to gather our thoughts, especially the power play, figure things out, and then we'll try it out on Friday. Now, again, the more reps you get, the better you get. So I would assume you're going to see some NHL talent, probably a good bit of it still tomorrow. But it is an opportunity, and it should be an opportunity for guys like Poulin, guys like Puustinen, maybe even a guy like Ryan Shea that we just talked about, to try to make one last stab at it, or take one last stab at it to try to get a roster spot.
Yeah. Maybe you put the five on the top power play. Maybe you have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, Raquel in the lineup for this game. And then everyone else you kind of just plug and play just to see what they can do, because what you do here in this situation is you're knocking out two birds with one stone. You're giving that power play another damn chance to do something, anything, but then you're also seeing what you can do. Not that I'm the one drawing up the lineup, and this definitely isn't going to happen, but that's just my thought. And plus, off the top of my head, I can't remember how many people are left anyway.
I mean, there's only 9 defensemen. You have to dress 6. So
yeah. So you're going to see plenty of NHL talent in the next couple of games anyway.
Yeah, I think there's There might be 20. Yeah, there's 20 forwards left on the roster right now, and they can only dress 12. So that's where you need to give an opportunity. Like, do you really need to see another game of Noel Acciari tomorrow, or do you want to see Sam Poulin on? I mean, I know the fourth line's not where he's supposed to be, but like Noel Acciari, Lars Eller, give Sam Poulin one shot and then get those guys out there the other time.
And also, do these veterans want to play in all these preseason games? Does Jeff Carter really want to be trotted out there again?
I don't know. I mean, it all depends on what they feel they need to get ready for the season, and that's different for everybody.
And that's why I'm saying, like, do they want to? Because it doesn't come down to, doesn't come down to much other. It's a matter of if they want to get up to that speed, because they're not getting paid for it. They don't get paid for these preseason games. So if they're looking at it as injury risk, even like if Jeff Carter's saying, I'm in the last year of my career, I'm making, against everyone's will, a lot of money. If he doesn't want to play in it, he shouldn't have to. So, if I think at least for the veterans, if they don't want to play in it, if they feel like they're getting there at least Wednesday, maybe if they all want to play Friday in Buffalo, fine. That's okay. That's cool. That's like the last giddy up before 3 days later you drop the puck on the season. But at least tomorrow, I think, give the veterans a rest, and at least as many as you can, and let the young guys, let these prospects, these lineup hopefuls, get their one last crack at everything, and tell them, like, this is it. This is the chance. And like I said before, though, I'm also boldly assuming they make cuts today.
Yeah, well, considering we talked about some of these players that are on that cut line, they probably will. Yeah. They probably will, just to spite me, and they'll be like, hey, hope you got your episode out fast enough. But no, I agree with you. Definitely would like to see these guys get another opportunity, and I don't know why. I was giggling. You mentioned Jeff Carter's, like, whether people like it or not, it just made me think of, like, Jeff Carter is Macho Man Randy Savage in Spider-Man 1, and he's looking at Kyle Dubas, a.k.a. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, is saying, I got you for one more year, buddy. One more year. And just, holding the Penguins hostage for one more season.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that Mike Sullivan really did speak pretty highly of Jeff Carter.
He's the promoter that's going to underpay Tobey Maguire, a.k.a. Kyle Dubas.
Yeah, so everyone, Jeff Carter is going to be in the lineup. I hate to break it to you. You heard it here. Not first. You heard it here.
You heard it here at 331st.
Yeah, if we heard it last year, we knew he was going to be in the lineup this year. So, hey, welcome to this. And you know what? If Jeff Carter can prove, I've said this before, we're going to go in with some optimism, right? The team's going to go with some optimism. We're all going to go in with at least a little bit of optimism and say, you know what? It's his last ride. We're all assuming at least it's his last ride. Maybe it's assuming the same thing. Go out on top. I almost said kid. Go out on top, big man.
Yeah. Big Jeff Carter. I mean, I don't know. Already positive signs, the fact that he's on the wing instead of at center to start. So
it's a good start. Yeah. It's
on the right foot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good start for Jeff Carter and his positioning in this team. And, Mike Sullivan might be reluctant to healthy scratch him at times, but man, if that has to happen, that has to happen truthfully for this team to win.
Yeah. If his defensive game breaks down, that's when it's going to happen.
Has to. Yeah.
Right. If his defensive game breaks down and if his face-off percentage dips below 45%, then you'll see Jeff Carter up in the press box. But no, regardless, we should stop bashing on him because we're going to be doing it all season. We're going to finish this episode by giving some bold predictions still. Who makes this roster? These are going to have a really quick return date here. Which players are going to seemingly take the 5 roster spots that have been open since the beginning of camp? 3 forward spots, 2 defense spots. Who do you think takes them and makes the roster out of camp? Let's start with the forwards, Horwat. Who do you think takes those 3 forward positions?
Oh man, I'm not even sure.
Give me one name.
Yeah, that's where things are so up in the air still. I could see Radim Zohorna earning a spot in the bottom 6. I don't know about playing alongside of Kenny Malkin. I don't think anybody does. That might be an Alex Nylander spot. And come full health, maybe a Brian Rust, maybe a Ricard Raquel.
Yeah.
But I could see Radim Zohorna earning his way back into the bottom 6. Mike Sullivan has spoken highly of him on a couple of occasions now. And again, he's another one of those names that we weren't looking at properly whenever he was brought back. We were looking at it as probably just AHL fodder. even during the end of his first NHL stint with the Penguins, things weren't going great. It was just kind of okay. He's just the big body out there that is playing defense. Suddenly, he has a little offensive touch that might be able to help the Penguins bottom six out. So I'd say he's the bold prediction for me in terms of offense.
Yeah, I have Radim Zohorna on my list too. I think this is the year he finally breaks the mold of being not quite good enough to make the NHL roster, but not quite bad enough to be considered a full-time AHLer. So somebody takes a chance on him on waivers. I think this is the year that he finally breaks it. I think the circumstances have fallen in his favor, and I think he's stepped up to the challenge and performed well. You mentioned that you've seen that offensive side a little bit more consistently this season because we've seen it in the past, right? Even the first time he came up to the NHL and people were like, oh, this is cool. Radim Zohorna, that's a big guy, big body. And we were all expecting, oh, he's a bruiser. He's not. He's a smooth skater. He's great with the puck. And that long stick helps in defensive zones too. He's great at getting in the right position, and he takes up a lot of space. So maybe this is the year that he finally does it. I think he does. I think he gets the spot. Another one that I think is pretty obvious, and honestly, this might be one that, to be fair, you might have already penciled into the roster and aren't thinking about, because I did at first when I was like, wait, there's only 2 spots. Drew O'Connor. Drew O'Connor has made this team. Like that is what is an open spot to enter the preseason. It was who's going to be on the left side of the third line. Drew O'Connor's walked into camp, said mine, and has not relinquished it since. Him and Lars Eller have looked great together. And while, yes, it was a question coming into camp, I think we all knew the answer by about the 3rd or 4th day that Drew O'Connor was going to be that guy in that spot. So Drew O'Connor is the number 2 name for me.
Yeah, absolutely. He came in right away, and it was, oh, Drew O'Connor. Yeah, for sure. Without doubt.
Yeah.
It was quick, too. It wasn't like, it was probably on the first day, if not second. We saw him start and just kind of had our eyes on him, said, all right, what can he do? And immediately it was, yeah, this guy's good. Next, we're moving along here. He's in. Next, who's next in line? Who do we need to talk about? So Drew O'Connor, for sure. It helps that he came in with a 2-year contract fresh, and that shows, and also when it comes to it, that shows the new regime in Kyle Dubas likes what he sees.
Yeah.
That's one thing you do have to look at when it comes to returning players. Kyle Dubas had every right to ship off as many people as he wanted, and he did. He did. But those guys that stuck around, that means they're in the right space, at least at this point, you'd think, in the right space in Kyle Dubas' mind.
Yeah, and I mean, Drew O'Connor did get headlines over the offseason because he was the last guy to sign for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He signed in the same week that the Gensel news dropped with his surgery, that the Erik Karlsson news dropped. So he was involved in the stories that week, and that gets to a little bit of a higher profile with the fan base. And then of course he comes in and he backs it up with a terrific performance in the preseason. Now, of course, we've seen him all 3 years that he's been in the Penguins organization play more and more and more. Last year, career high 46 games. If he makes the team out of camp, there's a chance that he gets to that full season. What's he able to do? Is he able to bring the offense that he's shown in training camp, that he showed at the World Championships? That's going to be the next step, because you're not playing on the 4th line anymore, buddy. You're on the 3rd line. You're expected to contribute a little bit more, especially for a Penguins team that didn't get that last year. So it's going to be an important season for Drew O'Connor. Can he continue to separate himself and be a 3rd line guy and score at the pace that the Penguins need for the 3rd line left wing?
Get ready to learn 3rd line, buddy.
Yeah.
I love that meme. The what's his name? Adam Silver?
Yes.
I love that meme. I could use that every day.
Well, we have one more forward spot left, and this is where it gets hard. I think Drew O'Connor was the easy one. Radim Zohorna is one that is kind of, tiptoed on the line, because we've seen this before. We've read this story before of Radim Zohorna looks good in training camp, and then he doesn't make the roster. I think this is the year he finally does it. So even that was a little bit of an easier selection. Who's that last forward? I mean, at this point, it could be somebody that plays on the 2nd line. It could be somebody that has to play on the 4th line. Who is that last forward to you, Horwat, that makes the roster out of camp?
I still like Alex Nylander. I still do. It's because he can play top 6, middle 6, I guess I should say. He can play in that middle 6. He can play 2nd or 3rd line, especially to start the season whenever we're down a Jake Gensel. Someone offensively minded needs to step in to the Penguins lineup and help cover some of the points and the goals missed. Alex Nylander's the guy that can do that at least to start the year, and then from there earn his spot and remain in the lineup, probably in a different role, but show himself. And this is a perfect opportunity for him. I think it goes out to Alex Nylander just without doubt. I know Sam Poulin still around. I know Valtteri Pusin is still around, but man, I just don't see it happening for them because they've already been looked over a couple of times.
Yeah, they haven't gotten their opportunity in these games where the full roster's in and a couple of these other guys, but somebody that has been and has had a couple of opportunities even with the NHL regulars in the lineup, I think it goes to Vinny Hinostroza. Like, I know it's hard to really refute Alex Nylander at this point. It seemed as if, when he was brought back before anybody else was even in the front office, it seemed as if, okay, this is going to be his shot at the NHL level. But I feel like Vinny Hinostroza has come in and, I know Nylander has a little bit more offensive upside, but I mean, he hasn't shown it at the NHL level. I mean, not at least consistently, and neither is Vinny Hinostroza, but what Hinostroza brings you is a little bit more tenacity, a little bit more of a 200-foot game than you see from Alex Nylander. And I think that combining his play at camp with the relationship he already has with Brian Rust and Mike Sullivan, I feel like it's Vinny Hinostroza's time to take that roster spot.
Yeah, I think so too. And one of the bonuses that I've noticed of Hinostroza over camp in these preseason games is he can play both the power play and the penalty kill. Or at least he's been deployed on both. I noticed he was on the second unit of the power play in those 6 opportunities in Halifax. But he's also been taking reps, at least in camp, on the PK against the top guys. So there's great utilization that can be had with Hinostroza. He can play both sides of the puck, probably can play both sides of the wing because, again, Mike Sullivan loves that. And he had an audition up on the first line with Sidney Crosby. Didn't last, past the Ricard Raquel portion of things, but you know what? It's still a viable option for the NHL roster and one that, again, we may have slept on a little bit during the offseason, but he's made more of a name for himself than quite a few other guys that have joined the team.
Yeah, one guy I was kind of disappointed in. I don't need to get into it. I thought there was going to be more from Andreas Janssen in camp. I really did, and he's kind of just faded to the back. And he's probably going to be placed on waivers. Maybe even as you're listening to this, he is on waivers. We'll see if somebody else takes a chance on him or if he starts the season in Wilkes-Barre. But I don't foresee him making the roster, and I think that's a pretty safe assumption at this point. But we have defense as well. I find it hard to believe Chad Ruhwedel doesn't at least make the roster after 7 years with the Penguins, because there is a level of loyalty and what you've shown us in the past for Mike Sullivan. I think that he probably makes the Penguins roster, especially because he's been that 7th defenseman for them really since he showed up, and he's really only had a couple of opportunities to be number 6. And I think even if he isn't the guy that you want at number 6, he's the perfect name to have as the 7th defenseman. They
still look at him as Mr. Dependability. He could take 20 games off, step in for 2, and be perfectly fine. And that is a useful piece to have in the lineup. I'm gonna be with you there that he definitely probably cracks at least that 7th defenseman role. His time in the AHL is just about over too. I mean, at this point, if he's playing in the minors, no, he's not, because he I would assume a guy like him wouldn't clear waivers.
Yeah, I would imagine somebody takes a chance on him, especially considering how Ty Smith was surprising, but Chad Ruhwedel would be like, that is a number 6 defenseman on most rosters. And, a guy that has that ability as a 7th defenseman too, his stock is probably pretty high.
Yeah, he is one that someone will be willing to give him an NHL contract. He's proven what he can do. The difference between Chad Ruhwedel and Ty Smith is, like we said, Ty Smith apparently doesn't have that competitive level yet, that competitive edge that needs to be given to his game. Despite how good and young he is offensively, there's just something not there for him that other teams didn't like. Whereas Ruhwedel, he's proven himself. He's a veteran guy that can be thrown onto most teams in this league, like we said, in a 6 or a 7 spot, and he'll do just fine. Yeah. One's proven and one's a project. And at the end of the day, NHL general managers will take the proven player over the project, most times. The upside for Ty Smith at this stage, I guess, is just not as high as somebody that's a proven defenseman, especially at this point of the season where, listen, you have your projects. You've already staked your claim on certain projects. And when it comes to one over the other, obviously the Penguins have selected to keep
Chad Ruhwedel at least longer on the NHL roster. We'll see. I think we both expect him to make the roster, but that leaves one spot left for the entire team. It's on defense. It could be the 7th defenseman spot. It could be the 3rd pairing right side spot. We talked a lot about Ryan Shea. We talked a little bit about Libor Hayek. And we talked a little bit about Mark Friedman. Between those 3, Horwat, who gets that last spot?
Something about Ryan Shea sticks out because he, when it comes to building this roster, is more of a Kyle Dubas guy. Mark Friedman was the first move made by Ron Hextall when he got here. It was a waivers claim from his former team, no less. I think when it comes to this current regime, I'd say Ryan Shea is probably in a better light than Mark Friedman. Not that the fans and this team doesn't love Mark Friedman, because they all do. Everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to put in the guy that's going to help you win games. Something about Mark Friedman last year, it didn't seem the same. Don't know what it was. And maybe it was because he played way less.
Yeah.
At least I think he did. I don't remember the numbers off the top.
Feels like he did.
But it feels like he played way less. So maybe that hampers him a little bit. But again, like I said, it's ultimately Kyle Dubas making the decisions here in terms of who's on and off the roster. I'd say Ryan Shea gets the advantage because of the Kyle Dubas aspect. Not that we all don't love Mark Friedman, but something just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I agree to an extent, but I still think when you look at it at the end of the day, I mean, Ryan Shea, you mentioned it earlier, is a guy that hasn't played a game in the NHL yet. And I know that shouldn't be a factor, and it probably isn't a factor, but when I look at that and I look at what you want from 3rd pairing right side, and I look at what Mark Friedman brings, and I just feel like he's the type of guy, not just in the lineup, but in the locker room, he's a guy that people go to bat for. And I think when Dubas, the way he operates is he probably asks the opinion. Now he has the final say. He'll say, you know what, if I don't agree with everybody, I'm still going to be the guy. That's probably what Kyle Dubas says. That's what most NHL general managers would say. But I don't think the gap is very wide between Mark Friedman and Ryan Shea. But I do think bringing that grinding, pain in the ass style that the Penguins don't have is something that Kyle Dubas is going to value here when he's setting his first roster. And I think Mark Friedman is the guy that brings that over Ryan Shea. Now, again, I think that's a razor thin margin between the two, but I would say that Mark Friedman has the edge over Ryan Shea.
And I can see that too. It comes with the NHL experience. I know we said it felt like he played way less last year than the year before.
He didn't, did he?
Last year he played 23 games, goal and 2 assists. The 21-22 season, 26 games with a goal and 4 assists.
Okay, so he did play less.
He did play less by 3 games.
He played a Jonathan Gruden amount less.
Yes, pretty much. Probably in terms of minutes too. But yeah, it's 3 fewer games. But you know, something about that 21-22 season, he felt way more noticeable. I think maybe it's been how much of a pest he was then too. But well, he threw the body a hell of a lot more this past season too. I don't know. There's something about Friedman last year. He seemed quieter, but maybe that's because there was so much other noise in the lineup that we forgot he was in for most of it. So I don't know. I think Shea might get the push, but I wouldn't be shocked with either of them really.
Yeah. So we'll have to make a friendly wager. I'm betting on Mark Friedman. You're betting on Ryan Shea. Loser has to do 100 push-ups on the YouTube channel. I don't know. We'll figure something out. I have no idea because I don't want to do 100 push-ups, and this is too close for me to risk doing that right now. So you know what?
And we're getting near the end of the episode. Our brains are a little fried. We need some time off.
A little bit of mush,
today.
And the room I'm in is a hot box right now, so it is warm. So you know what? That means we're gonna call it. That's it for this episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast. 1 week away from the start of the season. We'll see you guys next time.